Hello, and welcome to the 11th episode of Empower Your Magical Self. I'm your host, Leah Wellborn, the Mystic Autistic. How are you doing, my lovely? How are you empowering yourself these days? How are you finding magic in the world? I am having a lot of fun doing this podcast. That's helping me find magic. Roller skating, I love my roller skating. That's helping me find magic. And I've been trying to participate more in the local spiritual community. And that's how I met the guest that I'm going to bring you today. I went to an open house at a place called Sequoia last week. It's a really beautiful place in Cap Hill in Denver where all sorts of services are offered, yoga, healing, massage. It's a great space. I encourage you to learn more about it. So I went to the open house. I noticed there was a woman near me sitting on the floor working, and she seemed to be very happily working on an iPad. And I could glance over and see that she was working on what looked to be sigils. I'm really interested in sigils. So I took a chance and said, I really like what you're working on are those sigils. And she looked up at me with the most beautiful, beaming face. And she said, Hi, I'm Sequoia. And I thought, oh, wow. I don't know exactly who this person is, but I want to find out more about them. And I think that you will have the same experience when you meet her. Her name is Sequoia Sage Garza-Keith. I just call her Sequoia. It's a long name. She is a seer. She is also an artist. She's a healer. She is a multi-talented, multi-magical person. I was so grateful to get to meet her. So I'm really happy to bring her to you today on the podcast. Before we get started, I want to ask you, how are your holidays going? Even if you don't really follow, if you don't subscribe, if you don't love the holidays, they still happen to you and they can still cause you a lot of stress. I know they used to cause me a lot of stress, and that's why I've put together a little offering. It's a little course to help you get through this season, tapping, meditation, some affirmations, articles, videos, all that kind of stuff. And you can get it on my website, leahwellborn.net. And it's for the low, low price of $32. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And I hope that regardless, you are having a good season and that you're finding some ways to manage your stress that are healthy and good for you and good for the world, because we got a lot of bad for the world stuff going on. But not my next guest, Sequoia. During our interview, we talk about her artwork. Now, you can't see her artwork if you're listening to this. So I want to let you know that by the end of this week, I'm talking to you just before Thanksgiving, I will have published an article on medium.com that will have all of the art that she has sent me and the descriptions of the art. It's just really very cool and heartwarming and lovely. And I think that she's really going to go far with this art. So I want to take the opportunity to share it with you. So it will be at medium.com. You can always find it through my website, leahwellborn.net. Always got lots of good free links and stuff for you to enjoy there. So I do hope that you will take the time now to sit back, put your listening ears on, because this is a fascinating interview with a young woman who I feel like is one of the people who gives me a lot of hope, because she's a lot younger than I am and she's been through a hell of a lot of stuff in her life. And she is just still sparkling and magical. So please, if you're in some sort of a situation you don't want to be in and you think that you're stuck, know that you are not stuck, my darling, because Sequoia has been down in it. I have been down in it. And look at us now. We're happy, and you can be too. So, my dear, my darling, without further ado, please enjoy this interview. Haha, I rhymed, with my new friend, magical seer, and just magical person, Sequoia Sage Garza-Keith.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? It's so good to see your pretty face. And when I
Oh,
say pretty, I don't mean just like, physical appearance. I'm just saying your radiance, your loveliness.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Good. Tell me what you did.
Yeah, I spent a few months putting this together. There was a victim of homelessness here in Denver that I had the opportunity to host the memorial for. And so that happened today with a whole group of friends. And we did a whole flower release to kind of release the grief and guilt because there was so much guilt and regret around it because they all felt like they should have helped him in some way. And it ended with so much laughter.
Oh, good. That's
It
so
was so
good.
good. Yeah. I was called a death walker one time, and I really resonated with that term because I am a death doula of sorts. Like I have been very near and dear to those who are dying, and have passed. Like I did decedent transfers for a little while, and part of my activity in that I did on my own, it wasn't part of the job description, is that I would always grab their feet and say a prayer. Um, Cold, frozen, didn't really matter, burnt alive, like it was like
Yeah.
things that I witnessed. And I still would grab their feet and say a prayer for them. Um, and part of the job description was I had to put a ankle tag on them so that way they could be properly identified at all times. And that was actually part of the issue with the gentleman we just hosted the memorial for, is that he was listed as a John Doe for a while. So his family and friends only just found out he passed away. And he had passed away in early of 2019.
Oh
Uh,
my. So it's been a while. Wow.
yeah, it has been a while. So, more or less, I appreciate the term death doula, but I just like to think I deal with spirits as a whole, earth side or not.
Yeah.
So I call myself a Narika, which is a Huicho term to mean to see. I'm Chicana, so my family is indigenous Mexican, and my dad's side is from Puerto Rico. And so we have like a lot of mixed cultures in that realm, but Narika is something that just feels like it resonates a lot with me.
Would you mind spelling that for me so that I can get it right when I write it down in the notes and everything?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
Nierika.
Okay, cool, cool. I have a little bit of auto processing issues as well with audio, so it helps me when I can kind of visualize things spelled out. So I appreciate you doing that because things just
Yeah.
sound like a blur to me sometimes if I can't make out the spelling.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I'm really, really dyslexic. So I
You told me
often,
that.
yeah. So even like really basic names like Megan or Eric, I'm like, please spell that. I might
Okay.
even throw a Y in Megan. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Um,
Yeah, because I think
definitely.
we both have some spectrum stuff
Yeah.
for what we spoke, and I think that's interesting. I feel like we spectrum folks have so much to offer. Spectrum
Yeah.
in all terms of the word. I think that the world has been so binary for so long, and that people, in my experience, growing up in the 70s and 80s in rural Texas, I was so weird that I was like everybody and then the weird girl. And I think that there's so much more that I see among younger people of there being a spectrum of all sorts of things, and autism being one of those things. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on all of that. 'Cause I feel like it comes with so much of almost like a dogma or like a prejudice against it, and it's really not like with my like spiritual path and everything like that. Honestly, I feel like I would not be able to do a lot of these things that I do if I wasn't dyslexic, because being like Narika, meaning to see, I am incredibly visual because of my dyslexia. And honestly, that's like a gift. I can paint an entire 3D scope, a whole universe sometimes, as I kind of showed you
I know, and I want to
in my
talk about
mind,
that
and
too.
then be able
Yeah.
to produce it.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you grow up in Colorado?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was born in Aurora and I grew up in Evergreen, Colorado before
Oh,
it
I
is
love
now.
Evergreen.
Yeah, my parents, they found an 1800s hunting cabin, because when I say I grew up in Evergreen, people think like, "Oh, I grew up in like, no, we were not in like we were literally in our literal insulation of our house was socks and license plates.
Oh
Like,
my gosh, wow.
yeah, we didn't have like proper heating. We had well water. Like, we had to shovel the snow off the roof type stuff. Like, yeah, it was like very small. My dad built it from what it was to what it is now, and yeah, so I'm really grateful for all of that rugged upbringing.
So that was good. I was going to ask you, I couldn't tell from your demeanor whether that was a good experience or bad or neutral. So it sounds like it was good though.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I miss it so much because, like, I mean, I think like, everyone goes through these phases of life where they're like, oh, I hate the way I grew up. I want to go, like, if you're in the mountains or something, they're like, I want to go see the big city. And then they're in the big city. It's like, I want to go see the rural areas. And like, everyone goes back to their roots, like, hopefully, in one way, shape, or form, even if it's bringing a piece of their hometown into a new environment. But like, yeah, we're trying to move back up to Evergreen. Actually, I really miss it a lot.
Your death walker, can we call you that?
Yeah,
Since I don't want to butcher your native word because I'll say it wrong and I'll sound silly. So I'm not going to say that. I'll just say death walker.
sounds good.
Tell me, was that something from early childhood that you were aware of, that you felt? Or was it something that when you were, your connection with spirits, your connection with these things that you were talking about, was that early on, or was it something that developed later in your life? I'd like to hear about that and how you know about that.
Yeah, I think this definitely was before birth because my mom actually had a miscarriage of a fetus that she had really attached herself to. And it was old enough that they were able to determine it was supposed to be a boy, and he was supposed to have my name actually. And she knew that this soul just wasn't ready to come to Earth and that it would come back at some point, and she's convinced it's me. I can totally see it in some ways. I'm two spirit. I definitely identify with like riding the line between like masculinity and femininity. I feel like a woman. Like I like being referred to as a woman. My pronouns, however you refer to me, I'm here for it. He, him, they, them, she, her. I don't care. Just with respect is all I care about. But I didn't come to Earth smoothly. I was actually born not breathing and had to be brought to the NICU for resuscitation immediately. So I was pretty much DOA, like from the womb. And I've always kind of had this inclination about death. I've always kind of liked being close to it. Not necessarily liked it, but there's just something that feels like home in it. And I've had lots of mediums. My mom's super spiritual. And so we've gone to like palm readers, and every single medium I've gone to, they're like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here. I'm like, I know. But then later in life, I actually overdosed and was confirmed dead for 15 minutes. And after that, it became really, really apparent to me that I needed to be closer with death itself, because I know a huge part of me didn't come back from that. I started hearing things differently. I started seeing things differently. I was operating my world differently. And then not too long after that, I was in a really, well, this was during, but a little while after my overdose, in the violent relationship that I was in at the time. My fiance at the time, ex-fiance, knocked me out and held a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. And I woke up literally just in the nick of time that the bullet burnt my eyelashes and didn't actually make contact with my body. I have a lot of damage in my left ear because of my head was on not the concrete, the brick wall. And so that reverb caused a lot of damage to my ear, but managed to get out pretty much unscathed. And I am certain, like without a shadow of a doubt, that the only reason I'm here because of that incident, like there's nothing I can think of in a scientific and like real world-esque narrative that I should be here right now if it wasn't for my great grandma, my other piece of myself on the other side, and Santa Muerte herself, because like I have had so many close encounters. I've been hit by 3 cars, two cars, 1 bus, been T-boned by a truck. Like I've been battered and bruised, and I'm still climbing mountains, literally. So it's like it keeps finding me, so I have no choice but to like welcome it into my life.
I love that story. So I feel like you're in a good position to answer the question. So what are you here for? Why are you so insistently here? What are you bringing? Is the question clear? Yeah. Okay.
This is actually something I've been grappling with a lot this year because of the domestic violence stuff. I've had a huge lack of self-confidence, not even self-confidence exactly, but self-worth. Like I move through the world fine. Like I'm pretty proud of like the way I look. I don't really have any issues with that. No, like physical insecurities, little social insecurities, but that comes with spectrum shit, I think.
Yeah.
And I kept hearing this like thing. It was like, I'm a cosmic architect. I'm a cosmic architect. I was like, hey, okay, I can see that. Because I love working with kids. I actually do a nonprofit that focuses almost entirely on child education. And then I do all my death work. And so totally put into perspective for me that like my job here on earth is to make sure that children have the tools that they need to live the life that they can learn the most in.
Mm-hmm.
And then make sure that the people that are dying that I can interact with have the smoothest exit that they possibly can. And just set them up for success. As on the earth plane, there are lessons you need to learn. And if you're not going to learn them, you're going to have to do it again.
Right.
And so teaching kids the value of giving and kindness and compassion and just general respect for the planet, I think is really valuable to learning those lessons on a grander scale. But then also in death, making sure that they're seen. They have so many stories and so much you can learn. And people are so scared of death that they don't even have a, it's like, anytime I was hit by a car, I could have died. Like I had a will a while ago. And like my podcast that I host is called Mortality Diversity. So I talk to people about death and dying and stuff.
Cool.
I think more people need to be talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
You say that and it's like I say that it's the most basic truth. And yet people will be like, oh God, that's so depressing. Don't say that. And I'm like,
yeah.
What's so depressing? I mean, it can be, but you gotta face it, right? It's like every single one of us.
Sure.
We gotta. I hate the thought of going to my death just like, oh no, right? I imagine that you are trying to prevent that in people and help people from being raging against death as they go, right?
Oh, for sure. And that's like a big part of like all these conversations is just like getting people who are not necessarily comfortable with it, thinking about it and putting it, kind of rubbing it in their face like, hi, this is gonna happen.
Right.
It might not be tomorrow. It might be.
But it might be.
Years. But
yeah,
it's all about just like really utilizing the time that we have now, because people, I think, look at death and think of it as like a bad omen. Like you see people, they're like, oh, I saw a raven today. It means I'm gonna die. And it's like, no, ravens are actually the symbol of a new beginning, and they're messengers. And if you're not listening to the message, like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's not like a threat or anything.
Right.
But you're definitely missing like a huge piece of life itself. If you're walking through life with fear, you're limiting so much joy you could be having. So like, why the fuck would you do that? Oh, am I allowed to swear on this?
Absolutely, it's fine. Yeah. No, it's totally fine.
I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, why the fuck would you want to do that to yourself? Like, there's so much joy to be had. Like, go bungee jumping, go swim in the ocean, like, go just have some fun. Like, walking around with fear is just, it makes me sad to like see people that just, they stick so much inside their bubble, and you see so much loneliness.
Yeah.
And then once you get towards the end of life, they recognize that. And they're like, so much regret. And I think that that's why a lot of people, like, not people, but like a lot of spirits get stuck
on the earth plane, stuck in that regard.
Because they're not ready to let go. They're like, wow, I didn't live it. And it's like, well, you need to let go and try again.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen at any moment. Like, it doesn't have to be at the point of death. It can be just a wake up call, like maybe, like, for example, like with the memorial today, a lot of the people that were kind of discussing the circumstances of his passing, they were vocalizing how much they learned and the value of asking for help.
Mm.
And I thought that that was so poetic, kind of in regards
Mm-hmm.
to it, because it's hard to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have help, you're limiting the joy that you could be having. If you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling so isolated and feeling so alone, you're going to carry that to your grave.
Yeah. And in the next life too, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm only second generation here in the US. So when my family crossed the border, they pretty much settled in Southern California. We spent summers out there. But I really liked just interacting with these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom actually would take me to the local, I can't remember now if it was a hospice center or an assisted living home, but something along those lines. I played the harp for 10 years, and so she would take me to
Oh.
facilities for me to play the harp for them.
Oh, that's
Uh,
so cool.
yeah, I just, it's what I've been drawn towards, and my family has
Mm-hmm.
always, like my parents particularly, have always catered towards my fascinations and let me have opportunities in that world. Because I'm a seer, I've always seen like spirits of animals and spirits of people. Never really understood exactly what it was, but my mom she sees animals, like she sees the spirits of pets. She doesn't necessarily see humans. She's a medical intuitive, is
Mm.
what she refers to as her gift has been given to her. But so she has a different skill set when it comes to humans, but my seeing spirits goes across. It's not species dependent.
Is it something that you like see constant, like like a sixth sense thing? Are you just like all the time? It's just spirits all the time, or do you control? How does that work? It's like for someone like me who doesn't have that gift, I don't know what that's like.
That's a really good question. It really depends on what state of mind I'm in. I During that domestic violence thing, I was actually hospitalized 3 times and was sent to a psych ward. Um, they thought I was nuts and not being abused because that's how our system works. But
Mm.
um, I was diagnosed with psychosis because I see so much. And they were like, well, you don't have full-blown schizophrenia because you can tell the difference between what's real and what's not. But I have permanent psychosis. It's not episodic psychosis. And so if I'm in a really negative state of mind and I'm not in control of my daily habits, like if I forget to eat, forget to sleep, sleeping is a really big problem for me. A lot of things happen at night.
Yeah.
But I need to very much be on top of my self-care and keeping my environment in check, because if my environment's out of whack, my mind just goes. And so I will see a lot more sometimes just walking down the streets. I'm not an empath. I actually joke I'm an apath. um, so I don't necessarily pick up on people's energies in terms of like the way they're feeling, but if there's a lot of grief there or they have a spirit attached to them, like I can get a little overwhelmed for sure and be like, hi, like you should know that you should do something about it. And I actually do treat those situations as well. But it's just dependent. So if I'm really on top of my self-care, it's just something really treated as crazy,
Right.
except by that abuser and by the hospitals. Like
Mm-hmm.
every other point of my life, I've just been really lucky to have people who are spiritual, people who have been able to see the positivity in me and know like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Like, and I know a lot of people don't have that, and that's why so many people that do have these disorders, I think, do commit suicide successfully. I have no idea why I didn't die. Like fundamentally, like the science behind it, I shouldn't have brain function at this point in time.
Right.
So I think that was just a gamble and some divine intervention. But that was part of why I did what I did. I made a very conscious decision that I didn't want to be here anymore and I wanted to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And something was like, nope, sorry.
I had that same experience too. I didn't OD, but I was on the verge of suicide. And my miracle, whatever, happened coincidentally with the pandemic. In a way, I believe the pandemic saved my life, which is such a weird thing to say because it was so deadly and has devastated so many people. But I don't think that I would be alive if it hadn't happened. I think I would have killed myself. So that was my moment. Are you aware of a moment or a time that made the turnaround for you? So I like to talk about this because I want people who are listening to this to know that no matter what bad place they're in, no matter what horrible circumstance they think, well, this is so fucked, there's no possible way out. I have to just die and start over. I like people to know that that doesn't have to be true.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get from there to here with the mind of people listening who maybe are there right now?
Yeah. There was actually two incidences that really turned it around for me. One was really close to home. So my abuser's best friend was also our roommate. We all lived together. And his little sister was very ill. And she actually succeeded in her suicide attempt almost exactly a month after mine, in the exact same way I had attempted. I could see what she was going through and I wanted to reach out, but I was concerned it wasn't my place because like we weren't really directly friends. We just like had a lot of interactions, and I asked like even her brother and like her mom and some of her friends, I was like, should I talk to her? And they're like, no, she's just gonna suck you dry. Like she's not worth helping at this point. And like I think they thought she'd get over it. And she died. Later, one of my old bosses who lives in Hawaii needed a job done in Hawaii. So he flew me out there, working, blah, blah, blah. So he paid for me to go swim with the manta rays.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I went on this night exhibition to go swim with the manta rays. Then I started to relax. I got to be there present with the manta rays. And this manta ray, I was watching it cycle under the ocean. And it swooped up and it kept raising my body. And they're huge. They're huge. They're like 8 by 12 feet.
Oh,
Like
wow.
massive. And okay, that might be a little of an exaggeration, but they're taller than I am and way wider, for sure.
They're not that wide, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This manta ray came up and its whole body made contact with my whole body so slowly and lifted me out of the water, and then it dove and like did a little like corkscrew and then swam away.
Wow.
And it was just this profoundly spiritual moment that I wouldn't have had if I had died. And I just sobbed the entire like ride back. I just sat on the back and I watched the rainbow of the water misting off of the raft and the moon and just sobbed. I was like, how could I have missed this?
Right.
As dark of a period that I had came out of, like, and this is a profoundly unique experience, I know. But I've had so many moments since then that have the beauty has just brought me absolutely to tears. And I'm not a crier. I'm like,
I'm a crier. Good Lord, I cry. I'm crying right now. Just started crying when I was talking to you the other day. I'm a crier. Yeah.
So it's not really like in my realm of emotions to just like come to tears, but I have really embraced travel as a way to keep me here on earth, because I get a little stir crazy if I'm doing the same thing for too long, that I need something to look forward to, or I kind of go back into that suicidal mentality. I think that suicidal ideation is kind of dismissed a lot of ways as a problem that needs to be solved, but it's not a problem that needs to be solved. It's an experience that needs to be coped with on a regular basis.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Because
I was just going to ask, how do you cope with it on a regular basis? You personally?
Exploring and having things
Uh-huh.
I need to take care of. So I have lots of plants. I have 2 cats and a dog. And I travel a lot. Like last year, me and my partner were on the road for 3 months.
Mm.
We went to 46 national parks.
Ah.
And that sounds like glamorous, but we did it all in my Subaru on like a couple $100. It wasn't like any fancy stuff or anything, because I feel like a lot of people make the excuse for not traveling of like, oh, I need money, I need to save up for this. No. If you just dip like for a week, you will recover.
Right.
Like you just need to like make the decision for yourself of like what you need in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
And even just for the day, like just go up and like lay under a tree at like the public park. Like you don't
Mhm.
have to go on some grand adventure. Just being in nature itself, like the I think it's the phytoterpenes of the trees actually reset your cognition.
Mm.
Being in nature will completely reset your mood. It only takes, I think, 3 hours for that to happen. There's a ton of science that backs it up. I was going to college for biochemistry and healthcare management, so and it makes a lot of sense. Like just finding the beauty in life itself. Like I love going to the zoo to see different species and just like, wow, like how do they live like that? Like their legs are so tiny, or like just funny little things. It's like, wow, like just changing the way that you look at life itself, I think, is really important to cope with it.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in your own little bubble and be like, woe is me, or like this sucks, or nothing's worth it. Like
Yep.
that's my big one, is like nothing's worth it. Like I
Yep.
feel like my time, like I'm not reaping the rewards I feel like I should be from the work I'm putting in, whatever. Like those are like the ones that I struggle with. And so removing myself from those environments that I feel like I should be getting any type of recognition at all puts it in perspective. It's really humbling.
Yeah.
Being
Yeah.
humbled.
You just said a lot of things that I think are really important and really helpful. The most recent being about ruminating and getting in that loop, that mental loop of I suck. I said that thing and I shouldn't have said that thing. And I'm really bummed about it, but I shouldn't be this bummed because I'm really lucky and I have enough water to drink. And those people I see on the news don't have enough water to drink. So God damn it, I'm a loser. Why do I feel so sad when I have everything? And you can just go on and on and on and on and on. And you gotta cut that out. I don't see any way around cutting that out if you want to live a happy, evolved life. And so a lot of that might be true, but you gotta get past that groove in the record, that skip, because I spent decades ruminating and it did nothing for me. It did nothing for me. And it didn't help the people I was worried about. Yeah, I spent a lot of time ruminating about how lucky and how privileged I am and how it sucks that I was born so lucky and so many people aren't. Did that help those people? No, not at all. It didn't do a damn thing but make me sad and not help them. So I guess my point being, don't take the luck and the privilege that you might have in this life and squander it because you feel guilty for having it.
Yeah.
That's one thing that you inspired me thinking about. And just the other thing about traveling, that may not be everybody's bag. And that's a great thing, because to me, there is something for everyone. And there's no such thing as one size fits all. I think that's the biggest lie that has ever been told, is one size fits all. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
For you, it might be traveling. For another person, it might be going deep into Legos, like the history of Legos and building Legos. I mean, it could be anything. And don't feel silly because that thing is not a great big thing.
Oh,
you know what
sure.
I mean?
Yeah. My little thing when I can't travel, I have bubbles. I have strategically placed things of bubbles because
do you like blowing bubbles, like those kind of bubbles? Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in the mental institutes, that was one of those things that we were allowed to like have around, and it was just, I've always loved bubbles. always. But when I was in there in that state and having to reflect on my experience, like just blowing bubbles and just watching them like blow away and pop and dissolve and these sparkly little like orbs, I think embracing your childlike nature just across the board is really important. So like, fuck it. I'm gonna wear my fancy socks today. I'm wearing my Dark Side of the Zaw socks. It's like the Pink Floyd logo, but it's a piece of pizza instead of the crystal.
That's
Like
funny.
all of my socks are fun. I
I
can't have
love
boring
that.
socks.
Yeah.
So just like definitely those little doses of happiness that you can place strategically throughout your day. Like I have an adventure bear that lives on my dash in my car. I have a little mushroom lamp that lives in my kitchen. I have a duck that lives on my bathroom sink. Like just little like beings that like I give life to, so that way when I see them, I'm like, oh hi.
Yes.
And it's like people find it funny. And I love that they find it funny because they saved my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And funny doesn't have to be. I used to live in fear of people like making fun of me or mocking me or, fuck it, just fuck it. I mean, I'm a 50-year-old lady learning how to roller skate. I mean, it's like, I don't
Oh my God,
care.
yes.
I don't care anymore. And it's so freeing. And it's enabled me to be more compassionate in an odd way.
Yeah.
That I don't care. Which you'd think, well, that doesn't sound very compassionate that I don't care, but I don't know. It's a weird experience. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, for sure. Well, like the less that you give a fuck, the less you give a fuck about what other people are doing too. So it's like this natural, like neutralizing level. It's like the less you give a fuck, the less judgment you have.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes hand in hand. I love that you roller skate. I rollerblade. And
I saw you and I was like, you're very good at that. I'm not very good at that. But I did you see my videos? I have videos all the time of me roller skating. I roller skate like every day.
That's so much fun.
It is fun.
It's too cold for me, so I'm like I've started to kind of hibernate already.
Yeah. And I want, before I let you go, because we've been talking a long time now, I want to ask you, what is magic in your opinion?
Magic is a choice. Like it comes from within. Like so let me get into the science of it just really fast. So
yes.
when you're depressed, you actually don't process colors the same way. There's a ton of research on it. You can look at like color theory and depression, and the tones, the brightness of the tones that you see become very narrow when you're depressed. So the world that very depressed people see is a lot more bland than what people who are vibrant and in a good part of their life. So knowing that, it's important to reframe the world around you. That's why I have these strategically placed little bits of joy, because it's so easy to fall into that like bland nature. And you have to make a decision for yourself that that's not what I want to see. And so I think magic comes from within, and then you can make magic with your hands when you're ready. I think that's super dope.
Yeah.
I question.
Well, I love magic and I think about magic all the time. And to me, I think it's so clear that we all are made up of very many selves. None of us are just a monolithic self. We've all got the little kid and the teacher and, whatever our own internal community consists of. And I know for a fact that one of them is a purely magical being in each of us. And
absolutely.
So that's what my whole deal is. Find that magical self and empower it, because you can ride that wave of beauty and magic through your life, but you've got to find that groove to get into. And, you can take lifetimes not finding that groove, because that's what I did. I know that it's been many, many lifetimes that I spent in misery. And now that I found that groove and I can feel that magic, I feel so powerful. And I can't stand the thought of not having everybody around me empowered in that way. So that's what this whole thing is about,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being part of this. So thank you.
so much for having me on. Just one final little note. I have to say, like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
practice imagination too. Just like a shout out to absolutely anyone who sees this, listens to this. Like, practice your imagination. Just let it run wild. The cactus isn't a cactus. It's a wiggly little worm. Just something. Just play
Yeah.
with it, and that'll really help inspire like that creativity and that magic in your life for sure.
Absolutely. So where can they find you and find, if somebody says, oh, that's such an interesting person, I want to know more about this person. Maybe I want to work with this person. How do they find you?
I live on Instagram. My Instagram is at Santa Sequoia, like Santa Claus.
Okay.
Santa Sequoia, SantaSequoia. And my nonprofit, the children's education and everything that I do in that regard is called The Dead Roots. Exactly the way it sounds. Got to come back to the roots. They're dying. They're dead. And I do have a website right now for the Dead Roots as well for all of the events and things that we do, but it's currently down. So,
Okay.
but Instagram, I'm there.
Dead Roots an account as well as your Santa Sequoia. Okay. So they can find you there as well. Okay.
Yeah.
You're just a magical being, and I really appreciate. I'm so glad I met you. I felt like there was a reason. I went to that thing that day, and I saw you turned your face. You said, "I'm Sequoia," and I thought that's the reason I'm here today. So,
oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure to meet you the other day, and like, oh, I haven't been able to show very many people like the contents of my iPad, so it was so much fun to be like, hey, and then this is who this is, and this is who this is. Like,
I loved it. Please send me as much as you want and or are willing to send so that I can share it in the article. Wonderful, wonderful to talk to you. You're a gorgeous spirit, and I'm just blessed to have met you. So thank you.
Ditto. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful night, my friend, and thank you, my dear. Bye-bye. But I tell you, she's fascinating, isn't she? What a light. I am so blessed to have met this person, and thank you to Sakala for bringing her, and I'm sure many more blessings into my life. I'm very appreciative of magic. Magic comes my way often these days, and it's there for the taking, my lovely. Find it. Empower your magical self, right? There's part of you that's magic. Every one of us has magic inside. Find it and make that the powerful part that rules your life. It's possible. I did it. Sequoia did it. You can do it too. If you need a little help through the holidays, be sure to check out my course. It's at leahwellborn.net. Teach you all sorts of tapping, meditation, affirmations, that sort of good stuff to get you through the holidays. And also remember to check back on my webpage, leahwellborn.net, for the Medium article that will show you Sequoia's art. It will be up, if not by Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, and it will be there evermore, so you can check it out there. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to you for listening. Please go out and empower your magical self. Nobody's going to do it for you. I'm sorry. I know we all wish somebody would come and wave a magic wand and bring the magic into our lives, but it's your job and it's my job to bring magic into our own lives, and you can do it. So I did it. Love you. Bye.